Hello and welcome to Week 4 coverage of Louisville Cube League Season 4. Today we'll be covering Bryan's draft of the Vintage Cube, following him through the draft and deck building, before watching some matches between participants in our cube as we work to crown this draft's winner. If you are interested in hearing more about our season structure as a whole, be sure to check out the first video in the Season 4 playlist as it goes more in depth into how our season works. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the draft with Bryan joining us on commentary today.
Hello, I'm Joey.
I'm Prose.
And I'm Bryan.
And we're getting into Bryan's vintage cube draft here. Looking at the first pack, Bryan, do you remember what stood out to you, what things you were considering?
Yeah, there were two cards that I was considering looking at this pack. There is a Pyroglyph and a Thoughtseize. And I think that both of those cards are very good. And I immediately start off by not showing my pick to the camera and then regretting it and picking Thoughtseize.
Listen, you corrected your mistake.
Absolutely, yeah. I put Thoughtseize a little bit above Pyroglyph, but both of those cards are very good. I think Thoughtseize is like the second best black card, probably.
Definitely top tier fair black card.
Yeah, for sure. And then this second pack, I think that there are like 3 cards that I was considering here. And I think they are all red cards.
I was wondering if one of them was Through the Breach, because I feel like I hold that card maybe higher than I should. So I wasn't sure if you were also considering it here.
Yeah, Through the Breach. I actually think I go and separate the cards that I was debating between picking here. It's Through the Breach, Undercity Sewers, and Magda. I think are the 3 cards that I was torn between here. I think that Surveil Lands are very good. I rate them very highly. Magda is one of the best red 2-drops. Like, it's just very good if you're trying to go like Rakdos, beat down stuff. And Undercity Sewers, Through the Breach is good for being unfair. And I end up going with Through the Breach. I have a penchant for the unfair decks.
But that's a good double check through the pack afterwards, because there was a Primus in that pack, and Woodfall Primus coming back around would be the key indicator, I feel, to look out for in just, I believe, 5 more picks, because I believe this was a 6-man draft.
Yes, this was a 6-man draft, so. Toxic Deluge, not a bad follow-up.
Yep, this pack, it was pretty quick snap through. I was just like, Toxic Deluge, good card. Card that I'm hoping to wheel from that pack is Underground Sea. Underground Sea is obviously a pretty good duel if I'm trying to go Grixis with this.
And if there's only 6 people, that kind of thing can happen. In 8-person draft, I would consider it no way. But
yeah, for sure. I think the second best revised duel is pretty unlikely to table.
But in 6-person drafts, you end up with some drafts where the color combinations people are in are just a little bit weird sometimes, and you have one of the main combinations not seen. Love Concealing Curtain.
This pack is pretty disappointing, actually. I think that Concealing Curtains is a very good card. You are right. Like, and I am in black. But right now, I think I was like, 4th pick Curtains is pretty bad. I'm like pretty sure that I can table that card a lot of the time, unless somebody else is like solidly in black.
The real issue here is that none of these card names start with T that you want, and so it's not going to fit the theme of your deck so far.
You're right. My currently T-themed deck is falling apart here. And I go with something that's closer to T, which is M, as opposed to C with Malevolent Rumble, which I think is one of the better green cards. That's just like taking what I thought was the best card out of the pack here. And I almost, I'm debating between pivoting in this pack right here to like the channel cheat your stuff into play deck.
World Spine Worm.
There's also a World Spine Worm, which is a good through the breach target, but not like an end the game through the breach target a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't even know that channel is necessarily a pivot, right? Because a lot of the things that you want to channel, you also want it through the breach. So, although it is kind of an intensive color requirement, I guess, considering we've already taken red and
a black and a red card,
black cards on top of a green card. Yeah, so I also think we passed an Ulamog in the last pack, if I remember correctly.
There is an Ulamog in my first pack. It was in the first pack as I was going through. But yeah, I'm sitting here tanking between Duress, Channel, and World Spine Worm. And I think, I'm going to be honest, this is the longest that I tanked on a pick here for this draft. I was really like unsure. Because I think the Duress is like really good if I'm trying to stick with like a 2-color deck. Like it's I just really like the one black discard effects, like getting to see your opponent's hand, getting to disrupt them. If you're on the play, duress is like insanely good if you can hit like a Mox or a Mana Crypt.
But especially since you have the Thoughtseize and you were talking about wanting that curtain to come back around and thinking that's something that feasibly could happen, it does maybe slightly diminish, though still
Yeah, it
going with the
does.
duress.
No, I end up going with duress. Like I said, I just really value the information aspect. I think this pack is an absolute dud, if I remember correctly. There is like I could take Mind Collapse here. I think I end up sitting here and just being like, none of these cards are actually like a card that I enjoy. Like I don't really like rate Mind Collapse very high. Uh, so I think I just go back and forth here for a minute. And I'm like, yeah, maybe Mind Collapse. Maybe I pivot and just take or I'd not pivot. This is like a hate draft potential here, where I'm like, Council's Judgment is a really good removal spell.
I mean, the Curator's not bad, but it would definitely feel bad to take it 6th overall.
Yeah. Keen-Eyed Curator is a card that I feel like tables a ton of the time from this position.
Especially, we do have several players in our league who are against taking newer cards just out of refusal to read them, I believe. So Curator, especially in our
dual
queue,
land
is going to
here,
wheel.
just as like silent clearing. It's always nice to have like one of those effects sometimes in the late game. Ulamog does table here, and I do take it. It's the only card that I care about in that pack. There is, again, a card that is... there's a couple new cards that people don't read in that pack. There's a Kellen and Zoraline or whatever.
The Primus as well.
Yeah, Woodfall Primus did table as well. I was at this point, I was feeling pretty solidly as the person who is drafting the put a big creature into play person. Which, you know, you generally, it's not solid in a 6-man if there's 2 people in that archetype.
Show and Tell offering to do the same, but representing your 4th color of cards you'd be looking to play. And your 1 dual land and silent clearing does not match up with any of them.
That doesn't, yeah.
So I think for that reason, still considering some of these more medium green cards over Show and Tell.
Yeah, I'm evaluating Sentinel and that Fungus card, which, evidenced by the fact that I don't know its name, may reveal its likelihood that I don't take it. But
ever since one draft I played with it, shifting Woodlands is like Green Goblin Mask to me every time I see it. And
oh yeah, just calling out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm tanking so long on this like definite 23rd pick card here. But I'm really debating whether or not I'm going to be able to, or whether or not I should be playing green as a color here is really the debate, because Goldspan Dragon is the pick if I'm not playing green. And I think either Sentinel or the Fungus are green cards, or Shifting Woodland, if green is something that I'm going to do.
The difference might be that between 23rd playable in the deck, Fungus would be like a good sideboard card. So it's like, do I want to take this card that maybe will make my deck, or this card that definitely could come in certain matchups?
I immediately regret not taking my sideboard card, as Witherbloom Command, which I do end up taking here, does end up tabling, which it's fine. It's a decent card. But it's like, I definitely feel like that Goldspan Dragon pick, I probably should have taken Shifting Woodland. And then here, another big fatty for my Through the Breach with World Spineworm.
Notably, no channel.
Yeah, no channel. Channel doesn't table here, which is very interesting. I didn't consider that at the time.
Right. Ulamog being the only one of our things we really would have been able to cast with it, but still of note.
This is just Shadow Spear. At this point, we're at the dregs of the pack, so there wasn't really something that I was hoping was going to table from that pack, but didn't. Harvester of Misery is, good. Just taking black cards.
You just got a whole little black aggro deck here in the end of pack 1.
In my Through the Breach deck. Yeah.
Well, of the note, the Curtains did not come back around, so
yeah, Curtains didn't table, which is interesting.
Losing that aspect of the aggro option.
Yeah. And then Show and Tell last pick, but I don't have any blue cards currently. This pack has some interesting cards in it. I think that one of the cards it has Valgavoth.
Yeah, Valgavoth.
Right.
Not the best with Through the Breach, although if we do end up playing Show and Tell, obviously it gets a bit better.
Yeah. There's a Chain Lightning Valgavoth. There's a Time Twister and the Baleful Master. Yeah. So this one is a rough pack. Going through and evaluating my picks again because I'm not exactly certain what sort of things I can support here.
Right. I think this is a pick. Every time we see one of these marginal red or green cards that could be the pick, I think it really puts you to the test of what colors are you going to
Yeah.
actually play, because I like the Chain Lightning pick here if you are able to end up in red.
That I do try to accidentally pass my pack to the left here.
Do you remember, was there any consideration towards that Phyrexian Metamorph? That's a card I feel I often overlook.
No, I definitely was passing right over it. The cards that I was concerned between there, I think, were Chain Lightning, Baleful Mastery, or Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah,
Cradle isn't exactly good for this deck, but again, it's like an unfair card in a color that I might be trying to find a way into.
We were joking about aggro at the end of last pack, but I don't mind this Ragavan here.
Yeah, for sure. There's Ragavan, there's Crab. I end up going with Ragavan because I find that a lot of these decks like end up being like I forgot if I showed Chain Lightning.
Couldn't remember if you showed Chain Lightning or not. Yeah.
Yeah, these decks end up being a lot of the time like low to the ground decks that occasionally cheat in some creatures. Like I could have a really tight package of the unfair. There's a Tolarian Academy in this pack, which I obviously love, but
There's Volcanic and Palantir, which speak to me immediately looking at this pack.
yeah, those are the ones I was looking at. I was also looking at Dak Faden and then the potential of just hate drafting a Tolarian Academy. I do end up taking the Volcanic Island as just a potential line for the Show and Tell. And then this pack has a bunch of good cards, actually. It was
there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, there's a Nethergoyf Headliner Scarlet. I think there's a Shallow Grave. There's just so many good cards in this pack, which is kind of unfortunate. I mean, I'm going to get like 2 or 3 of these cards because it's a 6-man, so that's good. But I do remember wanting to just take this pack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of. I mean, Oath of Druids could be fine.
Yeah, Oath of Druids is also good because of the green.
Almost certainly tabling.
Yes,
yeah, that's part of my thought. Is this?
Yeah,
I end up going with Faithless Looting because I'm trying to table Shallow Grave in this instance, and I want a way to put creatures into the graveyard, which I don't currently have outside of channeling Harvester.
Well, you do have the Malevolent Rubble and the
and the Wither Bloom command, yeah, for the green.
If you end up in green, yeah.
Yeah. I end up snapping up a Blood Crypt here. We can pass by that because it's just such a necessary card for these kind of decks. A lot of them are pretty heavily intense in black and red. This pick's a mistake.
Inquisition over the coastal or over the Kolaghan's command?
Over K command, yeah. I think that that of the cards, I think that that K command is probably better than Inquisition of Kozilek. Regardless of the likelihood of either of those cards to loop.
Especially when you already have Thoughtseize and Duress, I feel maybe it...
Yeah, K-Command just provides a different thing that this deck doesn't currently have, which is Artifact Disruption, ways to recur creatures that aren't just like bringing them back from the graveyard.
You can't call Kolaghan's command K-Command anymore. It's lost that...
Oh, you're right,
It's lost that nickname.
Really like Bone Splitters here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bone Shards feels great here.
Yeah. Bone Shards, I ended up liking here. LED was purely a hate draft from last pick. That's why we can breeze past it. Bitter Triumph tabling, very good.
Now you have a lot of ways to put things into the graveyard.
For sure, and Shallow Grave tables. This line feels open, is the thing.
And
like,
how many cards were in that pack? Is Oath going to be the last card in that pack, or?
I think that there is a possibility for that. Yeah, because there's 5 cards here.
It looks like
6 cards.
Yeah, I think we're just one short of that happening.
Oh, yeah, because I passed 5 cards to somebody.
Right.
I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Man, a late Mind Twist here.
late Mind Twist for sure. Absolutely, definitely was surprised to see that. I think that card has, in some people's estimations, fallen off. I don't agree.
Well, to me, that speaks to no one's playing a black mana or black deck with fast mana, because that card is
Right.
strongest with fast mana if you get to bump it up the curve a little bit.
This is speaking to my hatred of the card Valgavoth, especially in a deck that's playing Shallow Grave and Through the Breach. I don't currently have a regular Reanimate.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of value in Valgavoth in this deck right now. I mean, that card's power is staying in play.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Of note, though, you don't have too many of the creatures that are good to Shallow Grave. Not that Valgavoth would have been one, but unfortunate that Worldspine Worm and Primus are not heavy hitters in that regard.
Yeah, this pick was sad here. First picking a card that is almost guaranteed to table in Blackleaf Cliffs, but like there just was not a card that I was like super hype about. I think that honestly, Overlord of the Balemark might be better than Blackleaf Cliffs first pick here, but like I just wanted a dual land. I was like, I didn't see bad lands at any point. I don't have any fetches, so I'm just like trying to make the mana base work at this point.
Ooh, Emrakul.
Oh, Emrakul.
Yeah, we
like
snap an
big
Emrakul
win.
here, which is pretty nice. Big win for the team here, obviously.
Was that another reanimation spell in that pack as well that we're looking to maybe table?
There's a Vamp Tutor.
There's a Vamp.
Maybe that's what I saw. I thought I saw Corpse Dance, maybe, but because with Eldrazi, it's Corpse Dance and Shallow Grave that we're looking for. So now having this Emrakul and the Ulamog from earlier, really would love if Shallow Grave gets open somewhere at this table. Can't imagine anyone else wants it.
Yeah. Yeah, this pack didn't have a ton here. Grave Titan is a pretty good, like, castable Breach or Shallow Grave target. Also, it's pretty good with both of those things, making 4/2/2s. But I ended up taking Fatal Push.
Is that Fable?
I think that's Kamano.
Okay.
That's Kamano faces Kakazan. Don't worry.
It was a red saga, so
it's a red saga, and if I didn't snap it off, it wasn't Fable.
Right.
That pack wasn't exactly full of a ton of beaters. I think that right now I'm checking to see how many removal spells my deck has.
Brian, I was having the same thought, because while I'd be kind of excited for Fable, here I know you're much higher on the card than I am, so
Yeah.
The fact that it wasn't immediately picked was what gave me pause.
Yeah.
I forgot there was another red saga.
Yeah, I take Cut Down here. Just getting more removal spells. This pick is kind of interesting. I slide Caracas over here to the front.
Oh, I really want that Blazemire Verge. I know we have some Fitzing already, but
yeah, I think this is a greedy pick here.
Well, I think you just look at it as a I think you just look at it as a removal spell, as less so than a land. And I mean,
yeah,
it
for
is
sure.
really that
it's a
anymore.
colorless land in this deck. I'm definitely never tapping it for white mana, and it is also kind of a hate draft. Like Caracas is insanely good against Through the Breach Emrakul.
right, that's what I meant by defensive. Is
Fair.
This way none of your opponents have it.
This pack is so sad. This pack has Entomb, Archon. It just has the Shieldred. There's just so many good cards for me in this pack, which is unfortunate. As you can see, the first like 6 cards in this pack are black. I end up taking Archon because I want a 4th like solid good target, and Archon is like the best thing to Through the Breach and Shallow Grave into play outside of Emrakul, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. The only consideration is that maybe it's more likely to table than some of those other cards, but I like to see Overlord coming back here. Nice pickup on that wheel.
Yeah, my thought is that if somebody's like just a sneak deck at this table, which I don't think there is at this point, Archon is better than Entomb for that deck. Yeah, I get Overlord to table, which is fantastic. Him to Turok tables. I'm just like mono discard spells at this point, pretty much.
Right, and pack 3's been so good for us that we don't. I was looking maybe at some of the blue and green cards early in this pack, but this pack's been so deep for us that it looks like you might not have to play blue or green
Third color,
as we go through.
Yeah, at this point, I have so many targets for the Through the Breach thing that I actually right now am like, I'm going to take Echo of Eons just because I'm trying to cut unfair decks that could probably beat me. So I've taken LED and Echo now. This next pick, I'm like, I really don't like Through the Breach Blightsteel Colossus. Like, I don't think that is a valid way to win the game a lot of the time. It's a good way to give your opponent like 8 poison usually, which doesn't really do anything.
My only consideration for it would be that we know someone took channel and we've taken their Emrakul and Ulamog already.
Fair.
So whoever has the channel maybe ends up like that. Blightsteel bails them out, but Ancient Tomb's also like a very nice pickup here.
Yeah, just getting to Through the Breach sooner.
Yeah, the Ancient Tomb feels great.
I am the only person in black at this table. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was Grief was the other card in this pack. So now the debate is between Grief and Entomb right now, which I have 5 discard spells already.
And you only have 1 reanimation spell, so it seems like you have plenty of discard spells, plenty of fatties. I think you're going to be able to get stuff into the graveyard reliably enough.
Yeah, I think that this is a tough call. It's like Entomb turns the whole combo into a 2-card combo is the thing. That's why I like it so much.
Preacher, man.
And you do already have a lot of discard. I do think I like Grief more there, but understandably you have so much discard already.
Just the saddest Yawgmoth's Will there.
Yeah, no, 6-man tables are generally not the best to be drafting a deck that can use Yawgmoth's Will.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
So we're going to take a look at the deck here. Bryan, any thoughts as we start to look it over? It does look like you ended up in just 2 colors.
Yeah, I think that the green was very speculative and was not super necessary. And I don't think that, like, I'm pretty mid on casting a show and tell in general. Like, I'm one of those folks that is like, show and telling in an Emrakul can win some games of Magic, but generally giving your opponent a permanent for free is not a good idea in Vintage Cube. So I ended up cutting Volk and show and tell and not going with that, which I'm 50-50 on if that's correct, considering all the rest of the stuff that was going around.
It's tough only because Archon and Primus, depending on what you're playing against, either of them can kind of immediately answer in some cases what the opponent puts into play off show and tell. But you only had 1 blue land, no green land, so I really like trying to avoid the splash here with how good pack 3 was to you.
Yeah, I think that is the that was the one consideration that I had, was just like I didn't see a single fetch land. I only saw 2 blue-red duels. There was a Spire Bluff Canal that was like circling around there at some point that I was debating taking at some point.
And that was during pack 3 where you had so many hitters already.
Just nonstop.
Yeah, it just was not worth it, in my opinion, to try to complicate the deck. I know that this is a pretty simple deck. It's not exactly trying to do too many flashy, crazy things. It's pretty straight. Like
you say that, but I like this aggro bend still playing Evolved Sleeper and Ragavan, giving your opponent some things to think about while disrupting their hand because you got all the discard spells. You have good removal in Fatal Push, and I don't see the Chain Lightning here, but
the Chain Lightning definitely made the deck. So if it's not there, I did cast it, so I'm pretty sure it's in the list.
Okay.
The question then is, did I run? Oh man, did I send Prose the wrong picture? That's fine. Chain Lightning was totally there. There might have been 1 less land. Or I played 41, really trying to flex on poor deck building skills here. But I don't think that's likely.
But yeah, having the aggro bend and disruption to then eventually combo, like, yes, you could have a very quick Entomb Shallowgrave, but also, like, you can play the early turns pretty normal before trying to put something together. So I really like the way this came together.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we get into the games?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I just like a lot of the games, if it's like turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Bitter Triumph, your opponent's thing, you kind of just win the game anyways. Like, I don't need to put an Emrakul into play. So hopefully we get a lot of that.
Let's see if we're able to as we get into the games.
All right, so we're here for the first match, Bryan versus JT. We tagged Scott back in for coverage, so welcome, Scott.
Hello.
As we're getting started, again, Bryan's deck has the potential to be very explosive, but I don't mind it just playing the fair strategy.
Yeah, it's hard to be too upset with just a turn 1 Thoughtseize. Kind of no matter what your opponent's doing, you get to poke a hole in their plan and see what you're up against.
Taking the removal spell over the Rabblemaster or the Fury, I have to imagine that means Ragavan, but it's hard to imagine what else that means unless it means Mind Twist, but I still think I'd want to take the Rabblemaster there if it was trying to build towards a Mind Twist to get the rest. The fact that this isn't immediately Mountain Ragavan. Oh,
okay,
him.
So just him. JT on a mulligan this game, and Bryan showing absolutely no mercy and tearing apart the remnants of the hand that he kept. So,
love getting rid of the Rabblemaster here. Oh, we have a creature to get the counter.
Just Kellen, yeah, just ripping him like a pro here.
I choose to believe Bryan has to have a removal spell to have left that Rabblemaster in hand. I still think that would be a dangerous choice otherwise, because if he hadn't hemmed it, then as early as this upcoming turn, we could be seeing that Rabblemaster. So, oh, maybe it was a choice between him and Ragavan last turn.
Or he maybe didn't have red either.
True.
JT allowing the Ragavan to hit.
Yeah, a little surprising, although I guess he doesn't exactly have a lot going on, and Kellen can chew through some more cards here.
Yeah, he's pinched on resources. He has 2 lands and a 5-drop in his hand. So if these 2 creatures disappear, he's really not advancing his game plan at all. Always scary to get hit by a Ragavan, but it feels like it's probably fine to do here.
Especially since it's getting returned to hand, so nothing in play going into Bryan's turn when he's facing some beats. One thing I'd like to point out, because I don't know if we've pointed it out on camera yet, that treasure token might look unfamiliar to most because that is our invitational winner token. Our own Scott on the call won one of our previous Qvitationals, so got immortalized as a treasure token there.
Yeah, and we'll have to get a good high-res image for you all to see that, because the artist we have did an incredible job with it. I'm so happy with it.
This thing looks like we're leveling Kellen here, but not wanting to just put a second die on it to maybe have a little confusion.
Yep, level up creatures and +1/+1 counters. It looks like Bryan's placed a helpful note on it that has disappeared on the camera pretty much.
Illegible to us, but I believe it's a piece of paper that says the word detective on it, so.
And I was going to say the person who isn't doing great work here is Ragavan, only flipping 2 lands. You got to imagine there's a fair number of burn spells like that Galvanic Blast in the graveyard that could help Bryan clear up the board a little bit here. If Ragavan could hit a removal spell, really swing the momentum back in his direction. But now JT's threatening Fury next turn if he's able to hit a land drop here.
Bryan is working with a lot of mana now.
Got to imagine mostly any card that JT top decks is going to be good here. Can't imagine he has too many more expensive cards other than this Fury. So any spell's good. Any land lets Fury come down. So he's in a pretty decent spot after a rough opening.
Very true. Always a thing to keep in mind with these aggro decks, that when you're in this spot, hard to have a bad draw. Ragavan should be in hand here. Okay, just as... Yep.
I believe we should have had to use a treasure there as well, but...
Yes, we're down to 2.
Oh, yeah, you're
Ragavan's
right.
hit 3 total times.
Path coming across, but just negating the life loss from the attack here.
Right, the 2 life gain off of swords, evening out.
Yeah, kind of fortunate for...
This is what I was talking about.
Yeah. Bryan doesn't seem to have drawn any of his big dumb monsters here, because with all these treasures, I mean, even the green ones at this point.
Very good point. And it looks like from that finger counting, I have to imagine that's what we're going to see next turn.
Yep. We found land number 5 for Fury.
Kills the bat token that was represented by that divider there.
And presumably, Brian's just going to slam a 6/6 or larger onto the table with his treasures. But nope, just hard casting Ragavan.
Willing to leave it on the table now that Fury's been played, I assume.
So what does that mean? It doesn't mean crab. He could cast the crab, right? He could cast Primus. He could cast any of the ones that are castable. I guess Ulamog is the one that's not castable but close. Like, he wouldn't be doing that count for Emrakul. He's way too far away. So have to imagine there's an Ulamog in hand.
Here's something that costs 5. Overlord, okay. Card that has the potential to find us another creature.
Right, and a potential to put a creature in the graveyard if we are sitting on our shallow grave, because that is an Archon on the top of the graveyard.
Yeah, but Woodfall Primus, yeah, also milled.
Choosing to put the Archon in hand means we do not have the shallow grave.
Yeah, but it is very castable and will be hitting the board next turn unless JT can do something about it.
Unless there's... I was going to say unless there's an Ulamog in hand, but Overlord's maybe even better than Ulamog. Because I believe we might be 1 mana away from Ulamog, or maybe we actually already had the mana.
Ulamog's 10, I think, yeah.
Good trade on JT's part, knowing that the Archon's coming down and just going to eat his Fury anyway.
I think... I'm not sure what's in JT's hand. I might have liked to see a attack with the Mutavault there as well. Although maybe then he just blocks the Mutavault, I guess. But it doesn't really seem like Bryan was too keen on taking 6 there, so I don't know.
Yeah, going down to 4 against an opponent with like 3 mountains in play or whatever could be pretty scary.
Cultivator in JT's deck looks maybe a little suspicious, but nothing to do about the Archon, so we're on to game 2.
Yeah, and that game was just a story of JT's resources getting hammered in the first few turns of the game and never quite recovering, even though Bryan took a while to get his game plan going.
Bryan's turn to mulligan here, it looks like. JT off to a much better start this time, it feels, with a creature, although the Thoughtseize again.
I have to imagine Robber the Rich is the bigger threat here.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan is a big fan of Springheart and Tuku also, so he might be looking to get that one out of JT's hand, knowing how powerful it can be. Does go with the Robber, though.
Right, we could say that part of Bryan's win last game was eventually hitting 2 good spells, or a decent spell into a good spell off of Ragavan, giving JT the option to do similar off Robber. Not ideal. So, looks like we're seeing Figure Bestowed coming in for 2.
I don't know that I've ever faced down an army of little Figure of Destiny clones, but it does sound kind of terrifying.
Right, quite expensive to get them all going, but not going to get the opportunity.
And Fatal Push.
Into Fatal Push.
Oh, and green source at the top. Okay, so we're back on the board.
Get the Curator going.
And Bryan having just spent 2 pieces of removal, this Cultivator may stick around.
Mm-hmm. Could be active next turn pretty easily. Looks like we're just impending the Overlord. Yeah.
Putting more cards into the graveyard may be dangerous.
Yeah, not having a land for his turn yet. Okay, there we go.
Ooh, unfortunate red mana after getting back that Evolved Sleeper. I think Bryan's mana is really good in his deck, but just I think it was 2 or 3 duels. I guess he didn't pick up the Verge, so maybe just 2 duels actually.
Yeah, 2 duels and the unhelpful Caracas. So getting a creature and a sorcery here.
Oh, it was Fatal Push at 8 last turn, not
Yeah.
Archon.
Could have eaten Springheart and Nantuko and gotten to 4 this turn.
Oh, strong point.
Also wants to channel this Boseiju, so his mana was spoken for.
Well, I mean, you would have just done it instead of the dragon, or just eaten this Overlord. But either way,
Oh, for the double permanent. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, maybe a bit of a misstep there.
5 mana.
Through the Breach? Okay. Well, that's huge. We're going to be left with Mutavault and no cards in hand versus, I think, 4 cards in Bryan's hand at the end of all these triggers.
Maybe just 3.
just 3.
Maybe
I think,
3?
Yeah,
Okay.
but with him at 19 life,
So, yeah. Yeah, JT is definitely on the back foot here, and from a low to the ground aggressive deck, I'm not sure what the string of top decks would have to be. Start with Horizon Canopy, maybe get in for 2 here.
look like Gaia's Cradle, which not really what you want to see in this position.
Yeah, and depending on the spells in JT's deck, he's just down to 1 of each source of the colors of mana, so he may be top decking a card that's just not castable as well. Bryan is just fully unimpeded here.
Yeah, it feels like there's just so many cards here that just end the game on the spot.
Well, of note, though, Bryan does only have the 2 unfair cards in his deck, with the 1 Shallow Grave, the 1 Through the Breach. So, Through the Breach being gone means if he doesn't find that Shallow Grave, he has to get this last 5 points of damage. A kind of fair way. His deck's pretty good at doing so, but a portable hold, draw for turn, able to answer the Evolved Sleeper that was going to present very quick problems.
Caracas, maybe not the ideal time. Can't recall if we've seen anything here actually that Caracas can even hit.
Is that a Jitte in hand for JT?
I believe so.
Very possible. He has that card in his deck, so
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, difficult to get that going with Mutavault. Gonna need another mana. Or no, would have needed another mana to do it this turn. But...
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, getting some frustrations from Bryan. I don't think he's flashed back that Faithless Looting yet, though, so maybe he has forgotten about that option available to him.
That does seem to be the case, yeah. And as somebody who has also forgotten a Faithless Looting on camera, I have some sympathy for that.
JT gonna just gain a little life here.
Don't know what would motivate doing that now, but fair to be afraid of just taking a bunch of damage out of nowhere.
So gonna get in for 4 here. Get our counters back.
And now it's starting to look scary for Bryan. I mean, he's done a whole bunch of nothing in the face of JT cobbling together 2 points here, 2 points there. This Jit, now it's making 4 or 6 on every attack. Bryan is surprisingly on the back foot in this game.
Bit up against it, yeah.
Right. Plays another land this turn, so both those lands could have, this turn and last, could have been discarded to Faithless Loading.
Yep, and we're just coming in for another 4.
Of note, if he hadn't used counters proactively gaining life, that could have been lethal. So, Bryan maybe getting an extra turn here he shouldn't have.
It does
Passing the
nothing,
turn very quickly.
but also didn't concede, so maybe it's a removal spell? Aha! There we go. And we've discarded World Spawn Worm, maybe?
It must be World
Yeah.
Spineworm. Otherwise, because if it was Emrakul, Emrakul would shuffle the whole graveyard back in.
Graveyard. Yeah. All right, so back to little, well, Tarfire to 1. Picking up a lot of mana for something.
So we have a spell. Could this be a Crabomination? And it is.
Crab people, crab people.
Lots of stuff in JT's graveyard. We're going to get a random one off the top of his library, and then I'm not sure what he was holding on to in his hand.
Bryan really eager to get these cards.
Yeah, this has somehow become a pretty important trigger. Like, Bryan was so far ahead, and it's just been chipped away. So we have 2 lands and a creature, so we'll play the creature.
Evangel, not a terrible one to hit, but...
Yeah, we have some good defense against, a haste threat off of JT's deck here, but any burn spell, Bryan's just cold to.
Bill, I believe we just have lethal here with Caracas, but looks like maybe we're bone sharding. Yeah.
Maybe missing that Bill is a legendary creature.
Oh, we Dash Ragavan doesn't super matter. Yeah, I believe this is.
Yep.
12 damage. And that'll do it.
Yep, a little scuffed at points for both players, but we got there in the end, and Bryan takes a clean 2-0 victory.
Yes, let's see if he's able to keep it up as we get into the next match. Getting into the next match, here we have Bryan versus Spurlock. Of note, because this is a 6-person draft. Ooh, Bryan on a mulligan to 5.
Double mulligan, yeah.
Since this is a 6-person draft, we are not doing King of the Hill style, meaning that it's not necessarily winner against a winner. I don't know at this point what Spurlock's record was going into this match.
Oh, I can fill that in because I played Spurlock in round 1 and I beat him, so he is 0-1.
Okay, so not the same structure you'd be used to from our 8-man draft videos. Just wanted to clear that up as we get this match started, waiting as the players develop their mana.
Yeah, and Spurlock has a pretty nice, like blue-white kind of mid-range tempo-y style deck. Quite potent, so I'm very interested to see what happens in this match.
Right. If Bryan gets his discard spells and are able to see how he needs to navigate around that, I feel like I'd favor Bryan here, having 3 such removal spells in Thoughtseize, Inquisition, and Duress. But if he's not able to get anything going, have to imagine Spurlock could be favored.
Yeah, Spurlock's got to be way happier with 3 turns of nobody casting spells than Bryan is here, so...
Yeah, Trigger Mage finding a mana crypt, so he's going to jump up to potentially 6 mana on his 4th turn here.
Yeah, for a second it looked like he was putting it directly into play, which I would find surprising. Okay, do we have a talisman to deploy here?
I spied an Ether Spell Bomb, but also, yeah, sort of the Meek.
Oh, okay.
Bryan's just got Overlord.
There's the Overlord. Must have been our draw for the turn. I imagine we would have done that last turn, if not. Getting Evolved Sleeper. This time we have the right color mana to cast it.
Bryan also should feel at least somewhat safe from the combo here because neither Sword nor Foundry came down on 2 mana. Spurlock let the second turn of the game go by without spending his mana at all. So I would assume from Bryan's position that he drew the Sword last turn.
Yeah, so Spurlock taking damage here. He very confidently exclaimed right before that die roll that on evens he wins and on tails he loses. So I'll let you piece that together.
Don't want to gloss over when we rolled off this first impending trigger. Woodfall Primus did make its way to the graveyard, so we do have an out for the Shallow Grave if Bryan can find that.
Right, not the most ideal Shallow Grave target, we'll say.
No, yeah, but sometimes you just got to hit him for 6 and destroy a thing, you know?
There is the Foundry. Oh, Bryan's just
and
done.
Bryan just does not want to play anymore.
Understandable. His deck, if he can't take his opponent out in one shot, I don't think can battle through that, and at that board state was not going to be able to keep up. It would have required like a Toxic Deluge into Through the Breach Emrakul to really get that done. I guess if he had drawn Shallow Grave for his turn, he could have broken up the combo with minimal damage done, thanks to the Primus that we were talking about. But
we talked a lot about Colligan's Command during the draft, and would have been a good matchup to have it for sure.
Yeah, gotta imagine this is where Bryan regrets not having it the most.
And again, this game may have been Colligan's Command may have been too slow because we have quite an amassing of mana here.
4 mana and a Sword of the Meek on turn 1.
Yeah, you got to think if Spurlock has that Thopter Foundry in hand already, then it's going to be a pretty quick concession.
Yeah.
Mid-range, this feels not like.
Yeah, I got to say, I didn't see many of these pieces in our match, and we played some long games, so I don't know if I just got pretty lucky to dodge these things, or I don't know.
Yeah, who's the aggro deck here?
I mean, if Spurlock isn't able to get something going, losing flips plus sleeper does put him under an amount of pressure. Especially if he's got mostly reactive blue cards. Like, if he's got a handful of counter magic, doesn't do much.
Appears we have something going on.
The Trinket Mage again.
I was going to guess Trinket Mage based on this.
Oh. That's a more powerful card than Trinket Mage.
Yeah, but it has to just be getting...
And this is maybe a punishment to Bryan for conceding so quickly in game 1, because it tells Spurlock that if he just does this, even giving up major resources, that it's good enough. And maybe after sideboarding, Bryan does have more of an ability to fight it, but yeah, gotta feel like a slight punishment on Bryan here. As I don't know, maybe he would have gone for it anyway, but hard to say.
And Bryan hasn't conceded yet, so maybe he's got something cooking. We did put an Archon into the graveyard last turn with the Faithless Looting, so him to Turok.
Just gonna get reprieved.
Interesting.
Yeah, it must be something really good in the hand, because bypassing making any Thopters this turn.
And that tells us why he had to sacrifice the Mana Crypt last turn, because otherwise I would have imagined the Mind Stone being the sacrifice, the life loss easily made up for by the extra Thopter that it's able to make every turn, but needing to leave up the Mind Stone plus the opposite side of that double face card that I'm forgetting the name of.
You'll find no help here. Apologies.
It's the back of Witch Enchanter, I'll tell you that right now, but
There you go.
Yeah.
That's more than I knew. So Hypnotarch does land this time, getting a Council's Judgment and an Oust. Potent cards, but really the board is the king here, and Spurlock is way, way, way ahead on the board with this Thopter Sword combo.
Opting not to block, it seems. Maybe you would just rather have a Thopter, just don't really care about taking a few.
Yeah, I mean, because you get a life for every Thopter made, you can race pretty effectively. I mean, I'm a little surprised that this hasn't gotten the concession for Bryan already. Just 4 tokens, end step, untap, have all my lands ready to go, make more. How do you ever get ahead on this board without interrupting the combo?
Right. If he wasn't gaining so much life, we could maybe Toxic Deluge, slow it down, still get through with this Evolved Sleeper, which I believe has just been activated twice. Those aren't 2 +1/+1 counters on it from its last stage.
Right, it's level 2. Has a Death Touch counter, I believe, is what has been added there.
We're going to flashback this Faithless Looting. See if we can find any help here. Did you all see anything in the draft that you could pinpoint as an out to this?
No, I mean we mentioned
not.
the Call Against Command. That was really it.
Yeah.
I imagine most of the reason that Bryan was hyper fixated on that in hindsight was this match. But
Sure, yeah.
Unfortunate. Their great performance from Spurlock's deck there, as Scott implied, it maybe doesn't come together that consistently too much. But between Tinker and Trinket Mage, seems like he's able to find at least some of those pieces pretty consistently. So
yeah, for sure. Joey mentioned not doing King of the Hill, but Bryan did opt to let Spurlock stay on camera for the remaining match after that, so we can go ahead and take a quick look at his deck here.
A full suite of Tinker targets here, not just the Thopter Sword combo, but also Blightsteel Colossus and Bolas' Citadel.
Bolas' Citadel, yeah. Kind of surprised not to see both the Kitten and the Coveted Jewel were in the draft, so one or both of those pieces must have ended up somewhere else.
right, we mentioned the Blightsteel Colossus being something that maybe could have been hated away from one of the other players who would play it late into one of the packs. This was not where I had mentioned it ending up, but definitely makes sense seeing it here.
Yeah. Lots of good early interaction too. 4 2-mana counterspells, Ether Spellbomb and Oust for just buying time. Really, really great looking deck here.
Veil, right?
Meadow. Which blessed Meadow. Yeah, so let's check out. I believe his last match was against Pellman. Let's see how that goes. All right, so getting into our third match here. Spurlock versus Pellman. Haven't seen Pellman yet, but I do believe he was playing for a 3-0 here.
And I believe, Prose, you played Pellman that day, right? Do you remember what he was on?
Yeah, he's as is probably apparent here, playing a bit of a green deck. There's a few other extra bends in there. I'll let it show as it goes, but a lot of the natural order, a lot of the pieces you expect to see from like a green ramp deck in here.
That's fair. Though you say see as it goes against blue decks with Hex Drinker, there's a chance we don't need to see any.
We don't see much more. Yeah.
As leveling up Hex Drinker around counter magic is an old favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Can afford to deploy something else this turn, and then if Spurlock tries to leave up mana next turn for one of those counters he has, then
opted just to pass the turn though.
Nothing to deploy, but also no level up. So implies Pellman has something here. Doubt it's to crack the Waterlog Grove.
Spurlock and Pellman here in a struggle for power over the red zone, it seems. Just both completely abandoning the bottom third of the playmat on their side of the table.
We're gonna have to have a seminar at some point to show people how to actually place their cards.
Did you see that scoot up of the lands? No,
Yeah,
Prose is
that's
right.
what I'm
This
saying.
is intentional.
Yeah.
They are all here pushing
Wow.
slightly forward.
Okay, well.
Oh my goodness.
That is
Turn
one way to
2
answer a
combo
hex drinker.
online.
Malcolm from Pellman.
Yeah, looking a little impotent in the face of just the full combo assembled on turn 2.
We did see the fungus and several other artifact removal green creatures going around. I remember us talking about a couple of them during the draft. Unlikely Pellman has any of the main deck, but at least he might have more answers than Bryan did in the sideboard that could help in this matchup.
Right. We know he doesn't have the Keen-Eyed Curator. We already saw that in JT's deck. But the fungus for sure in the draft.
It was in my pool though, so.
Well, that and also the fungus actually doesn't even answer this, right? Because the fungus only destroys colorless permanents. I might be thinking of Goblin Crater Maker.
Destroy
actually.
target artifact.
I'm thinking of Goblin Crater Maker.
Yeah.
The fungus does it all.
Walking Ballista with 1 counter for Pellman.
Yeah, we want dice on all of our creatures, even though they all represent different things.
Very strong.
Look at him there.
Point.
Look where Malcolm is. He's almost on. He's on Spurlock's side of the table now. If he goes any further, I'm pretty sure Spurlock controls it legally. Actually. Maybe this is how we punish zone abuse.
Pellman with a bit of a tank here before combat has to imply that he's at least considering the upgrade. Ooh.
Well, that card feels like it's on the wrong side of the table here. But all right, Time Twister.
Like Time Twister. I like it against the Thopter Foundry because Spurlock has offered to maybe not cast any more spells this game and just activate Thopter Foundry a bunch. As much as it can be awkward to tap low for Time Twister on your turn, it's a decent, at least, answer to what Spurlock is threatening. And if he does have an answer to break up the combo, he's got to find it as fast as he can.
Okay, Fast Bond follow
Time
up.
Twister into Fast Bond is quite strong. Also of note, I remember this from the draft. Pellman was sitting next to Spurlock, and this Celerity Academy wheeled, and Pellman picked it the second time he saw it, and if he had not taken it, Spurlock would have gobbled it up for sure.
Interesting to hear that it had tabled. I had forgotten that. Wonder what Spurlock took over it the first time. Maybe wasn't all in on artifacts yet at that point.
My guess is maybe that's where his Mana Crypt was, or like half of the Thopter combo he didn't want to risk, or some other like just generically very powerful card.
I do remember seeing in the draft, but I don't remember what it was with. So yeah, Strip Mine here. Going to take out the archive. Looks like Spurlock, I imagine, going to make a Thopter. Yeah.
Like ceding some of the battlefield advantage here by moving his lands back down to fit his Thopter. It's a bit of cowardice on display, but we won't fault him for it.
Maybe Pellman's on our side though. Maybe he's trying to get Spurlock to put his lands back.
He's just pushing him back into his zone. Yeah.
What an incredible thing that would be is if we move Spurlock's permanents all the way back, and then Pellman also just shoved his back.
Yeah.
Like now we're good. Now we're settled.
So Breeding Pool off of the Fast Bond, doing a bit of damage for Delighted Halfling.
Did we also see a forest come down though? Maybe I'm imagining it, but I thought
no, because we had 3 lands for the Time Twister.
Yes.
We had 1 mana left
right.
after that. Yeah, we used that for the Fast Bond and played the Strip Mine and the Breeding Pool.
Yes, Breeding Pool a little bit of extra damage off the fast bond. But develops the halfling, though. No answer yet for the Thopter combo. Palman just saying, yeah, bring it on. Going to make a block. Interesting. Willing to trade Malcolm for one of the Thopters, but not willing to trade the Ballista for one of the Thopters.
Well, the problem with getting rid of the Ballista
Academy?
is the Academy, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're effectively trading a creature and stone raining yourself.
Questions he needs to answer here. And it's hard without knowing what's in his deck if he has reasonable outs that he's drawing into here, or just soaking up some camera time.
There's Kiora, going to help him dig a little bit.
I'm also very curious how good this Academy is in his deck. I mean, we've only seen the one artifact so far. Surely he has more, but it's not looking quite as impressive as that card can.
As it would if it was on the other side of the table, in fact, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side of the table, it's just...
There's no reason to even still be playing this game in that case.
Yeah.
I do know that Pellman has the Phyrexian Nissa, which I'm not going to sit here and do the math on it, but that feels like a card that is almost enough to win from most board positions with its overrun ability.
Has to cast it for the full 7 mana to get that effect, though, and maybe speaks to the point of not giving up the walking Ballista.
And there's a monolith,
definitely helps with that.
Yeah, so let's see. Right now, Nissa would give everything +4/+4 in trample.
I mean, that's already not going to be enough as early as next turn, unless Kiora's token isn't attacking, though. So
it is not. It's not.
Wouldn't make the difference there.
Tamiyo is another body, so...
Yeah, so I believe we had a mana floating.
Okay.
He had a mana floating from using the Academy with 2 artifacts now. Didn't want to tap the Grove to take a damage, so just use the mana floating and the Grim Monolith to put another counter on the Ballista.
Yeah, so we have 7 mana ready to go for Nissa if we top deck it, because we are empty-handed. But knowing that, I'm not doing that math, but if it's potentially enough damage, then maybe there's an out here.
Of note, Spurlock's able to swing for 8 here, which would put Pellman at 1, so the Waterlog Grove is off, but Delighted Halfling is the last source, but that's also -1 attacker.
Yeah.
But maybe he can use Walking Ballista to shoot down one of the Thopters to keep himself at 2 instead of 1, keep Waterlog Grove online. That seems like the play to me.
Yeah, if he's conscious of that out and that's what he's playing to, I think that is a mandatory thing at this point. And again, I don't want to do all the math, so I don't even know if it's enough. Oh, and this oust has got to shut the door too.
Yeah, oust feels like it has to be. I mean, the life gain isn't nothing, but
well, it doesn't change the clock, right? Like Spurlock is still just going to kill him next turn.
Right. Well, but it makes so we have 4 attacking creatures gonna shoot one of the Thopters down. So that's 16 damage, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22. So I mean, even Nissa here isn't enough.
Yeah, in the face of making 4 more Thopters.
4 more Thopters, yeah.
Yeah, and the birds definitely isn't going to do it. So we're on to the next one. Pellman's deck looking interesting and quite potent, but in the face of a turn 2 Thopter sword combo, it's pretty hard for a lot of decks to play with that.
Looks like a mountain in Pellman's hand. I don't believe we saw anything in that realm before. All right, Pellman has ceded some of his ground starting game 2. His cards are at least partially on his side of the table. Birds of Paradise into Cryptic Coat.
Was hoping maybe for an early Kiora, even though I guess Pellman doesn't represent being able to turn her online too quickly. We know that Malevolent Rumble and some of those other cards are sitting in Bryan's sideboard, so Cryptic Coat also able to generate long-term value, just quite mana intensive to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Is an extra card for the artifact count, though, trying to justify that Tolarian account.
True, yeah.
Though I still have my doubts on it.
Yeah, don't know what the full contents of Pellman's deck were, so not sure on artifact count overall. Okay, there's Retrofitter Foundry, which...
And Retrofitter Foundry on its own is enough to make Academy appealing, so...
Does hit the bin, though, off the counterspell.
But here we get to attack for 3. If nothing else, we get to threaten to pick up the coat, but looks like we have something better.
Okay, Grim Monolith. We can go from 4 mana to 7, or we can just play Time Twister.
Colorless Floating. Probably not much more action this turn. Could redraw Retrofitter Foundry.
Always tough to give the blue-white deck a full grip again, but I think he went from 5 to 7, so probably not super impactful, whereas Pellman went from 1 to 7.
Yeah, definitely a good spot to resolve a Time Twister there. Let's see what Spurlock has to answer this.
A Mind Stone.
Still just setting up a bit. There's Spell Bomb. Not the most impressive of turns, but just putting some things on the board.
And not really facing down any real pressure here. I mean, we're getting attacked for 3, but...
True, but if you give Pellman too many free turns to untap Monolith or bounce and replay Cryptic Coat, the tokens are difficult to interact with. Like, I can't imagine one of them gets bounced, or not tokens per se, but the cloaked creatures, because they're Ward 2, are not something that we're likely to see Aether Spellbomb go after.
Yeah, I feel a bit of pressure after this resolved Time Twister. Pellman has shown that his deck is really, really capable of using every mana every turn. He's just got lots of like low drop creatures to play and lots of mana sinks like Hexdrinker and Walking Ballista. So even though his board currently isn't very scary, I just feel like it's going to be after this turn or the next. And I'm really looking to do more than just, advance my mana and play a Aether Spellbomb. But
this is
you don't get to pick what your Time Twister cards are, so this may just be all Spurlock has.
There's that Nissa. He's paying 2 life to cast it.
But Subtlety. Okay, so Spurlock had a plan here.
Having to throw away Jace may not feel the best there, but probably feels better than having that Nissa in play, I guess.
Yeah, and Jace versus the cloaked creatures that have Ward 1, it might have been hard to stick a Jace on this game anyway, so.
Yeah, but does leave the Nissa on top, so presumably just planning to cast it again next turn.
Yeah, I mean, if Spurlock leaves 2 mana up, we may be more wary of that. We've seen Reprieve and Counterspell already this game, both of which, or this match, I'm sorry. both of which are options thanks to the Time Twister shuffling things back in. And we know from looking at Spurlock's deck that he has 2 more additional 2-mana counters. So Pellman may choose a different avenue if Spurlock leaves some mana untapped, but his hand may not have better plays, so we might just jam.
And a
It
vault
looks like
now.
Spurlock's on 3 cards. Playing another.
Ceding more ground. Witch Enchanter, a nice draw here. Gets rid of the Cryptic Coat. Reduces the effectiveness of the Tolarian Academy.
And a Thopter Foundry. Right now, I'm not doing a ton on the board, except potentially sacking this Mana Vault if we don't want to, be pinged every turn. Or spend mana to untap it, I suppose.
Casting the Foundry when we know that Pellman can just cast Nissa and destroy it, not a play I'm in love with, especially from watching Spurlock's deck. Obviously, we've only gotten to see it do the Thopter Foundry thing, but I'm not confident it wants to play a game where that's off the table.
Yeah, that is a strong point for sure. I wonder if Spurlock just has no other options. Although in that case, just leaving the mana untapped and maybe he doesn't cast the Nissa is a better avenue. Oh, Pellman showed up with additional answers anyway.
So yeah, that's just naming the Thopter Foundry.
Right,
wisely.
Because with the coat gone, it would have been an even smaller Nissa, and it would have been a Nissa that could possibly get killed by an attack from the Witch.
Revoker juicing our Academy back up a little bit again. So we have 5 mana here.
Looked like Pellman had something he wanted to play. Maybe it's just that Nissa?
Yeah, I mean, we can play Nissa for 5 here, pay 4 life, and make a 4/4, I believe.
It's based on the lands you have, so it'd be a 5/5, right?
No, it's based on her loyalty.
Still, 3 creatures to Spurlock's 1 means that Nissa's probably safe. Could have a second with a Thopter and end of turn.
Maybe still considering using the -1 on something, but doesn't really feel like anything worth it.
Pardon me. The Thopter Foundry is named by the Phyrexian Revoker, so that's not even an option.
Well, it's an option, just not an appealing one.
Yeah, so that's just the Nissa Elemental.
I mean, it isn't, but okay.
It's masquerading as a pest. We all know, though. Offering the trade, Spurlock taking it.
There was a point in this game where I was like, what if it's a pivotal spell that gets bounced by Aether Spellbomb? But not the play we got to see this game. Spurlock needs something pretty good here, or he's just going to be dead in a couple of turns to Nissa.
Drawing with the Mind Stone.
Snapcaster? I don't think he has anything for Snapcaster to flash back.
Not with those counter spells getting shuffled back in from earlier.
Yeah, his graveyard is just permanence. Yeah, I don't think Spurlock has much in the way of action here. Yeah, kind of feels like this Nissa is just going to take this game to the finish line for Pellman.
Unless he's brought something in out of the sideboard. We saw a Dam in the draft, but I believe that ended up in Bryan's pile. I don't know about Sunfall or anything else. Natural Order.
It works. Just getting a Questing Beast, but that increases the clock quite a bit. Presenting lethal for the next turn pretty safely here.
Yeah, it feels like we already had lethal next turn. I mean, Birds wasn't doing much on this board, so it seems fine to get rid of it, but...
Yeah, I am surprised that the best target was a questing beast. I'm not sure, obviously, the makeup of Pellman's deck, but...
Right, the play I don't have as much of a problem with as the idea of having questing beast in your deck if you're... Or having natural order in your deck if questing beast is the best thing to get off of it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we know that Woodfall Primus and Worldspine Worm were in Bryan's deck.
And maybe there's a chance that what he wants is in his hand. There's a lot of questions about Pellman's deck because we still don't know what the red splash is for either.
Also true.
And in an Oko, another card that makes Tolarian Academy look a little bit better.
Right. I mean, I was won over by the Retrofitter Foundry.
Retrofitter, yeah.
The more we see, this Revoker might even be main deck just for that purpose. Right. I had initially assumed it came in out of the sideboard, but a chance that it's been here the whole time.
Spurlock gonna need quite the card here. I need to look at 1 extra 1. Mana Leak, not what he needs.
No, we really are looking at like a Sunfall or something, and then that doesn't even answer all the problems, but...
Yeah, a Plane's not going to do it, so on to the decider.
Going into this third game, I gotta say, Pellman has a few cards that disrupt Spurlock's combo, and from what Scott mentioned about their first match and watching that last game, gotta say Spurlock's deck does seem somewhat reliant on the combo. There's always a chance he can counter the pivotal spells from his opponent to buy him a lot of time, but Pellman with a very fast start here.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but this fast bond could be a herald of pretty broken things to come very, very quickly. Or 2 extra lanes in a pass of the turn.
Well, we know there's Malcolm, and anytime there's an island up, there's the opportunity for interaction, although a lot of those spells are in Spurlock's deck, so he's probably not worried about them.
Spurlock not to be outdone here with a Mana Crypt.
Interesting. I'd assumed we were going to see the Malcolm because Pellman choosing to take the damage to play those lands would have imagined he would have waited, knowing that he has the Time Spiral, so it's not like his hand was under threat of leaving those lands in there.
Kiora gonna hit this Subtlety.
Brutal.
Go straight to the bottom.
Both players with such strong starts, but Spurlock's strong start lines up so well against Pellman's.
Well, another tails for Spurlock, so I believe he's 0 for 4 so far on the broadcast.
Yeah, and I feel for Pellman there, given that the Subtlety was mostly face up, because playing the Mana Crypt with no additional spells on your turn, it felt pretty obvious, but Pellman's deck is all creatures. I mean, what is he going to do, not play a creature?
Kiora also was threatening to maybe draw extra land, like chain into a second spell that turn if he had drawn a couple lands off the...
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, just Tidebinder for the Oko here, too. Just...
Spurlock's interactive cards heard me talking about him and came to deliver this game.
I don't know if you two recall, but we had a member in our Discord when Tashana's Tideminder was spoiled who thought it wasn't going to be very good in Cube. And I got to say, I think that person was wrong.
It definitely has its moments to shine. I think almost any discussion on the card is still probably hyperbolic in one direction or the other, because most of the time it's just fine.
I think you're wrong. My experience, Magic players are never hyperbolic, right? All right, so Spurlock, is just commandeering this game here. Anything Pellman has done so far has just been stymied by Spurlock's interaction. Again, passing with 5 mana up. Let's see if Pellman can dig his way out of this.
Right. Of note, Tidebinder does take away Oko's ability to use its abilities. It does that for Planeswalkers, creatures, and artifacts. I'm always remembering that there's one group that it doesn't hit because it doesn't stop Urza's Saga.
Yeah. Hey, we got a turn without taking damage to Mana Crypt. It's pretty unfortunate for Pellman here too that the interaction that Spurlock did have came attached to 3 power creatures as well, which is just absolutely accelerated this game.
Yeah, I mean, Pellman is dead on Spurlock's next attack step if nothing changes.
Also, we're at turn 4 of this game, and Pellman has 4 lands in play. The only benefit Fastbond actually gave him was allowing him to cast the Kiora into Subtlety on turn 2. So, Fastbond, despite looking powerful when it first came down, actually not much help in this game.
And not for nothing, he played 2 additional lands on the first turn, taking 2 damage. And if he didn't just play both of them, he would have a whole additional attack step here.
That's why I assumed it had to be Malcolm, because playing your final land, at least, off the Fastbond, in my head, usually doesn't make much sense, but...
Yeah, I wondered if it was just some interaction that Spurlock didn't play into, but Pellman with just 1 card left in his hand, I'm not even sure that is the case. I think he just tossed some lands onto the table without thinking.
I wonder if there maybe is a Malcolm, and he didn't want to play it into the face-up subtlety, and has just never had the opportunity to play it since, because...
But knowing that you're going to cast Kiora on your next turn, like, I would not have...
Oust
So,
here.
I was going to say Spurlock was also kind of low here, but Oust buying him a ton of time here.
Yeah, I mean, that Mana Crypt is doing so much work. I believe it's done 9 damage to him this game, but yeah, not sure it's going to matter.
Yep.
Can make 1
the tempo
blocker.
we bought him was way enough.
So yeah, Spurlock takes down Pellman there. Although because of some scheduling we had today, we do actually get a 4th match that we can watch today.
Bonus match.
And the bonus match actually features 2 of us here again. It's me versus Scott, but Scott was also playing for a 3-0, so we can go ahead and take a quick look at his deck before we get into that match, if you want to talk about it at all.
Well, we can look at it as long as everybody promises not to count the number of cards in it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say what the number of cards in it. I'll leave that up to your imaginations. But
listen, I can't defend this. I don't know what happened. I distinctly remember cutting down to 23 spells and 17 mana sources, and somehow, if you all didn't follow the deal we just made, somehow I ended up with more cards in my deck than I should have. But I'm sitting here playing for a 3-0, so clearly I was just correct, and I'm going to play this many cards every time now.
Yeah, and normally I would say that you just, you accidentally left a sideboard card in at some point or something, but you take your deck pictures immediately after deck building, so...
Oh, yeah. I have no defense. I don't know what happened.
Well,
all right.
Let's see if it's able to work out for him as we go into that bonus match. So last match, we got to see Spurlock keep Pellman off of the 3-0, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was correct.
So here we're going to see if Prose can similarly keep Scott off of the 3-0 when we do our 6-man drafts. There's no guarantee that a 3-0 draft will get through, and got to be one of the best starts possible for white aggro decks in Mother of Runes, canceling any...
Mulligan to 5 as well, so I'm definitely way on the back foot already.
You had a mulligan in your 44-card 17 land deck? That's weird.
Okay, we don't... Listen. I wasn't aware that it was 44 cards. I, in fact, just learned that today. So, yeah, I don't know.
It is what it is, as they say.
Yeah, very happy that you missed a play on turn 2. But I also have nothing to play, and then I concede. So
just conceding to Zorlai and Mother of Runes, but...
Oh, Zorlai. Okay.
I mean, I don't know that the card that was cast there really would have mattered at that point, but...
Right, just... I did not recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like I was missing my 3rd land and only had 2 colors, and I need all 5. So, just
But showing us
I'm showing this hand.
wonderful, yeah.
Yeah,
Looks like a
because
keep.
triple mountain,
With the talisman
Yeah,
for blue and
Yeah.
white,
that's fine.
you can afford to take a damage for your mana, right?
Sure.
I don't
It
seem
will
thrilled
all be
about this
fine,
hand
okay?
either. But yeah, Zorline, a more recent addition to the cube. That was one of the cards that whenever somebody does 3-0 in the Vintage Cube, they get to add and remove a card, and Zorline was a card that was added by Pellman.
Zorline and Basic Mountain in your deck tell me that you're playing a lot of colors, and we know from Bryan's draft that he took a fair bit of the fixing that you might want. So on Scott's side of the table, I'm just hoping that besides our awkward mana start, maybe Prose, you could stumble a little bit here.
Yeah, so Prose almost played the Urborg on turn 1, and he took it back because, he didn't want to fix my mana yet, and I am salivating because I want that mana to be fixed. Like, he has no idea, but I want it very badly.
Very good balance here.
I had definitely seen some snippets of the deck. I didn't know it as the whole, but already being punished for my Urborg here with the Nethergoyf. Yeah, like Joey mentioned with the colors, discarding that Skyclave apparition.
Yeah, Nethergoyf was a part of a sideboard package I had. I played against 2 aggro decks in this draft, and I sideboarded the same way, just like lowering my curve a bit and bringing in some like narrow removal that I didn't want to main deck. Didn't have room for it,
Right.
Virtue taking out Mom, once again, punishment for the Urborg. So not only is Urborg not really fixing my mana in this game, but it's actively fixing my opponent's mana, so.
Yeah, thanks.
Good card.
Is that a mana tithe in hand?
Yes, I believe so.
Rough mana position to be in there where can't afford to leave that up if you want to cast a red or a white spell.
Right. Yeah, and this was a pretty hesitant keep, it seemed, from the start of the game, but
don't need a third white mana here, but again,
also
thanks to the
grows
Urborg.
the Goyf, yeah.
Nethergoyf getting into the red zone only while attacking. Interesting choice from Scott's side of the board.
That's
very
where it goes.
Yeah, we live in a society.
You go into the red zone to attack, and then you go back into the middle row. It's just correct.
Yeah, so just gonna throw the Scrounger after a block there, but not really sure what it's gonna take to get out of this hole.
Zagoth Triumph represents finally Omnath mana, so have a play I can make next turn.
You discarded Omnath.
Oh, I discarded it to balance.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I was trying to figure out how you were casting it from the graveyard. That card costs too much mana for Lurrus or for the bigger Lurrus to be able to cast it.
Looks like Plains Manatide Flage in my hand, which certainly not.
We have dueling virtues up there.
Yeah, certainly not an ideal trio of cards. Could clear the Sheoldred with Flage, but it would cost my entire board. Oh, my one creature, I guess, but...
Right. Sheoldred taking away the out of using the mutt in the graveyards unearthed to dig for more answers, because that 2 damage seems very relevant.
Although I've got to say, at this point now, even not clearing the Sheoldred, but just using the Flage to clear the Nethergoyf seems like it should be...
Yeah,
pretty attractive.
I'm surprised
here.
Seeing this in hindsight that we didn't have some kind of Flage play here.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that I really just wanted to hold up this mana tithe for something, but I can't imagine that that's the correct place to be. Yeah, I mean,
I knew I played Omnath. I could not remember how it happened, but I knew I did.
Okay, call against command.
Yeah.
So losing a life with the talisman, but gaining 2 from the card draw.
Yeah, and then if I have a land, I'll also gain 4 more. So.
Yep.
Yeah, we see a lot of cards here that Bryan either was hoping would come back or never got to see at all. Nethergoyf would have been nice for him.
There were several conversations after the draft of, I wonder where X went. And I think I made the statement at one point that there were 5 people at the table, all probably wondering where a card got picked at, and they're probably all in Scott's deck. So
yes, that
yeah,
feels accurate.
This draft was so strange because I struggled so hard to find any kind of lane, and I just sort of ended up accidentally taking dual lands, and then, territorial Kavu wheels, and then you see a Scion of Draco, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm just all the colors, and then you get to take all the best cards in every color that you see. It ends up kind of a mishmash, but,
All right, so game 3 here. Maybe see if we can play a real game of Magic at some point.
Very happy about my mana situation. It's looking much better than any of the previous 2 games.
Honestly, same.
Yeah. There's that Urborg.
Which is fixing your mana for now, but certainly doesn't feel as bad.
Don't recall if it was as pivotal in this game, but...
Yeah. It feels less bad when you're on 4 colors of mana already than it does when you're on Mountain, but...
Certainly. And you were developing your board. You got quite a imposing start on your side as well.
Yep. Among the more ideal draws, I feel. But we know there's Balance over there that, well, now can be cast, but... I guess Balance not effective, really, at this point.
Yeah, Kitsa would enable you to keep a creature in play, so that's like a problem I have to sort of keep my eye on as the game progresses.
Passing with a bunch of mana up here, though, I don't know what I'd be nervous of Scott representing. Of note, the Kolaghan's Command from last game isn't among the... Oh no, because of Urborg again, because it is represented.
Doing things a little bit out
I
of
love
order
Urborg.
here.
What a fun card.
For some reason...
You're doing this before...
We're activating Inti before we're attacking for some reason. I don't really know how my brain pieced this together, but obviously
the attack was coming. Yeah,
obviously the cat was going to attack, and
maybe that hand gesture will say is you saying that it was already attacking, but
I'm fairly certain that's what it was. Just realizing that that's not how Inti works, so just wanted to get in there, gain our life. Unfortunately, no creature to play here, or we could be looking at City's Blessing this turn. Though I guess that's a moot point once Kolaghan's Command.
So importantly, I couldn't, if my plan is to target the Mother Runes to try and kill it, I can't also make Prose discard a card because giving the Mother... Well, no, I guess the discard is targeted, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, well, never mind. I'm just trying to reduce the board, I guess, here.
Right, especially with Ocelot Pride, like, getting every permanent off the board does slow down that development.
I think it's just a mistake looking at this game now to not have him discard his last card, though. I clearly wanted him to tap the Mother of Runes. But I don't know.
I don't know. I can see.
Do you remember what your last card was?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm sorry, looking a bit slow on this.
Also, gotta assume Prose was maybe a little bit unlucky on that last turn, as you gotta imagine the curve's pretty low on this aggro deck to not hit something. To hit a spell that wasn't castable off Inti, especially such a good spell to now have an exile.
Right, yeah, losing Flage, not feeling the best there.
Yep.
We already discarded Adeline, another kind of later in the game heavy hitter.
I've not had the opportunity to cast a lot of Pyroglyphs since its printing, and let me tell you, it feels great. What a card.
Yeah.
And if you recall, I have a Nethergoyf in my deck.
Right.
That line of text does not come up very often, but when
right.
it does.
Pyrogoyf triggering off any Lurgoyf entering play.
Whatever the last card in my hand is, it must be pretty good to discard Lelia to keep it. Still can't tell what it is right off, but it does shrink the Pyrogoyf slightly, getting the mutt out of the
Did you
graveyard.
have a Palace Jailer? I sort of thought I maybe saw it.
No.
Okay.
Looks like Skyclave
Never mind.
Apparition and...
Yeah.
Can't tell what the red
Some
card
red
is.
card.
Oh,
Generous
it's
Plunderer?
Generous Plunder, yeah.
Yeah. So I think you had Skyclave in your hand last turn. I thought it was a white card, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
just hoping to draw a land to play that.
We're attacking mostly here to just see this Inti trigger, I would imagine.
Right. I mean, this thing is unearthed, so it's leaving anyways, so just trying to get the empty trigger off.
Yeah. Not a lot of help there. Eat that thing. You get to play your swamp. And
You get to play
the
both
curtains.
cards exiled with Enti this turn, which is nice. Did not get to gain any life, which is not nice.
It not being another white source is kind of brutal because,
Mm-hmm.
again, the Urborg still would have allowed you to cast the
curtains. Yeah.
the curtains off of
Right.
any land. Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned Bryan being a sort of a mana competitor, and mana was certainly an issue.
Right. I know one of the
this
two
deck.
of you almost certainly has Blazemire Verge. I don't know which one of you it is. But...
I believe I had Blazemire Verge.
But yeah, Bryan had the other black-red lands. There was a time when aggro often was punished for veering out of one color. I don't think that's the case anymore, but definitely veering into 3, it can be tough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly. I don't actually have a picture of this deck, but I'm fairly certain there was a Blazemire Verge, an Arid Mesa, a Badlands on top of this Urborg, so maybe just a bit unlucky with what's been drawn this game, but not a lot of white X fixing, aside from the Arid Mesa, which I don't believe there were any white duels, though.
Inspiring Vantage is also in your deck. We saw it
Inspiring
last
Vantage,
game.
yeah.
So I discarded Hull Breacher with Kitsa at the end of Prose's last turn. That was a really, really tough discard. My hand also has a Wheel of Fortune right now, so like I had the combo, but I thought maybe that was going to be too fragile in the face of his, like, all 3 colors he's showing me have pretty solid removal options. And I don't remember my other cards, but I wanted to keep all 4 of them, so I had to make a choice and gave up on that combo. But it was a very tough discard. Can't quite make it out now, but I know Wheel of Fortune is one of them.
I think we might get to see what they both are soon. Looks like Zoraline and Skyclave Apparition, and Zoraline doesn't feel very attractive here because I can't actually pay for its Enter's ability. If I could, it would feel great here. But as is.
Yeah, you also have the option to flip curtains this turn, which might be more attractive, given how long I like tanked on that discard.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Even if that is the play, though, it might come down to, is it correct to do that before or after attackers?
I'm responding with Galvanic Blast on Inti. Yeah, so Demonic Tutor, right? So in my mind, that Demonic Tutor is representing balance. If I ever like get behind on the board, so I didn't want to give that away, and then I kept Galvanic Blast to affect the table instead of trying to set up a maybe fragile combo.
I have to imagine on this amount of mana, you take the Demonic Tutor here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Wheel is kind of scary to cast in this situation because I am ahead on board, but it's, you know, precarious. If I wheel and he draws like 2 removal spells, then...
Also, you don't know the list, and Urborg's in play. Like, for all you know, there's a Bowmaster on the other side that destroys you for casting Wheel.
Yeah, definitely true.
Pyrogoyf did get a bit of a boost there with a land finally hitting the bin.
Have to imagine this is the turn we see Pyrogoyf start coming in.
Yeah, I mean, thus far, Pyrogoyf has mostly just been holding this Ocelot Pride at bay, it seems.
Actually, I think this is right. They're both 4-power attackers. Pyrogoyf's the better blocker. No reason to send it in over the Scion, and agree, don't want to attack with both.
I think my plan at this moment is to end step, get a surveil land, and take a look, and if I find nothing worthwhile between that and my draw step, to just go ahead and cast the wheel with 3 mana up and a land to play, potentially. This is all just speculation because I don't remember what I actually did, but that makes the most sense to me right now in this moment.
Yeah, no Wheel of Fortune is potentially coming, so I want to get the Zoraline into play.
Yeah, and I'm reading it here now because I conceded in game 1 to just any card he played, so I didn't bother reading it at that point. Which, maybe is not the best mechanics, but that's what I did. So
yeah, I mean, for anyone not familiar, whenever Zoraline enters or attacks, you can pay black-white and a life, I believe. 2 life? I think it's 2 life, and return anything with any permanent with 3 or less mana value to play.
And so my last card in hand, other than the wheel, was Mind Collapse, which I just hard cast, and I ended up getting a Triome instead of the Surveil Land. I guess I'm just definitely going to cast this wheel and don't really care about what I'm going to draw. Could also be color considerations too.
Which I don't think I'm particularly heartbroken about this wheel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure you were relishing the opportunity at 7 fresh cards here as well, given that you're a bit behind on the board.
Skyclave not even... While I understand keeping it earlier, well, even if it was castable, it doesn't really do that much.
Yeah, so now it's kind of like we've reset the game. We both have some stuff on the board. I'm like a little ahead, but I don't feel like super comfortable in that.
Yeah, that bombardment does a lot to even it out in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good. I mean, I have a Johnny in my deck.
I was going to say, if a Johnny's in your deck, you have at least a third, maybe closer to 50% chance of drawing it off that wheel. That alone makes me want to give Prose a small edge. But of course, any removal you find kills the pride and takes away a lot of those options. Hard to imagine you're shooting anything besides Scott here with this bombardment.
Yeah, just doing some quick thinking about the rest of the turn, but yeah, there's not really anything worth.
And notably, here. The Virtue is going to go to my graveyard and not to the Adventure Zone or whatever, because it's not going to resolve the Adventure Sorcery, whatever it's called.
Correct. That getting countered puts it in the graveyard instead, which presumably is where you want it. Because I don't know if there was an enchantment already in the graveyard.
There was not, so yeah, that Goyf is a big boy now. He's all grown up.
Big boy. Yeah, and I have not played a land yet. I did add a Mox Pearl to my board, but still have a land drop available to me should I want to do it.
Kit's getting in because we have 2 prowess triggers so far.
Yep, and it has hexproof, so suck on that.
Yeah. I was thinking about that when thinking about the Skyclave apparition. Assumed we would hit the Goyf anyway if we had drawn a plains before, but Kit's not even an option for it.
I mean, the eye can block the Kitsa here. I'm kind of surprised it's not, but I guess you're risking another instant killing it, but...
Yeah, if I just have an instant to play, then you lose your eye for nothing, which is why I think it's a good attack on my part, because I'm not really risking anything either. Vigilance and whatever.
I believe it had 5 toughness, so a double block does not threaten.
Yeah. Just a good, clean attack.
There's no world where it dies. It's just a question of whether or not it's worth the risk to block there.
Yeah, and so I end that turn without playing a land. So I don't know if you were thinking about it at all, but that seems to be that I just have all spells in my hand, which seems bad for you.
And
It does, yeah.
Given
Yeah.
Prose's draw this game, gotta imagine there's a decent chance he's got a lot of lands in his wheel hand.
Yeah, so this is an upkeep Vampiric Tutor, which I believe looks like it was for a Johnny. Oh no, it was for Sheltered by Ghosts. I remember this turn.
There's your second white. This is the turn I'm really bracing because it's your first shot at all these fresh Wheel of Fortune cards. So I'm hoping that it's not like too terrible for me, although I expect to incur some losses here.
Yeah, so Sheltered by Ghosts, take the Pyrogoyf, which is very risky. But
Certainly.
felt like a necessary step to take here. And there is the Ajani too.
I don't like you placing it on top of that cat token because I have to imagine that cat token's dead right away.
Yeah.
Pointed at.
And did you shoot Scion? Yeah.
Yeah, so I shot the Draco and then I made my cat token and sent the other 3 damage at the Scion. So clear the Scion off the table. Couldn't shoot Kitsa, remember, because of hexproof.
Yeah.
Right. Have to imagine the eyeball gets in here, takes advantage of the lifelink.
Yep.
Yeah, so feeling pretty good at this point.
But one removal spell turned this way back in Scott's favor.
Yeah.
Yep. And I still have Kitsa looting, which feels pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a ton that can just outright kill this eye from here that I can think of right off through the first 2 games.
This attack feels a bit intimidating. I think I'd double block, though, just challenging Scott to spend interaction and things on anything besides the eyeball, but single block there also seems fine. Oh, was that attack going at a Johnny or towards Prose? Because neither one seems like it would have been too threatened by 1 point of damage, but I guess a Johnny could have been threatened with prowess triggers.
Yeah, I can't imagine it makes a difference because I think I would have made this block for this reason regardless, which was that I could block and then sacrifice the other token to clear the Kitsa.
Yeah, so real quick, that Cryptic Command mode was bounce Kitsa and draw a card, which I think pretty clearly signals this balance coming. But the attack, I believe, was pointed at a Johnny because I wanted to sort of like threaten it subtly. Like if you think I have 2 spells to play, you want to maybe block Kitsa down all the way, and I don't have to spend my Cryptic bouncing it. But the end result is I was going to have no creatures on my side of the table, so I could cast this balance regardless of what you did. And so you respond to the balance by sacking your Wandering Eye, which puts the Pyrogoyf back into play.
Before balance resolves, so the Pyrogoyf is lost. Yep.
Does take down a Johnny, unfortunately.
Right. So now we're just on an even board with you having a Bombardment, and I have no other permanents really than mana sources.
Bombardment doing a lot to keep Prose in this game, I think multiple times here, so...
Yeah, and at this point, my deck has a Sarah Paragon in it. I'm just really hoping that I can find that because Sarah Paragon lets me put Zorline right back into play, and from there, my graveyard is essentially just a second hand for the rest of the game.
You don't think you'd play a Johnny first here?
I would probably play a Johnny first, mostly just because I wouldn't be able to play and activate Zorline the same turn as the Paragon. But
getting to untap here without you adding more threats to your board felt pretty great. Although you did answer my Omnath right away, which it's not nothing. But I'm feeling pretty confident in this game. Whereas like the turn after the Wheel of Fortune, I was like maybe not so sure what was going to happen.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure about my hand post Wheel of Fortune, but my hand now is 3 lands, so pretty good odds that a lot of those Wheel of Fortune cards were also lands.
Yeah.
and drawing another one here.
Oof.
Yeah, I remember spotting Inspiring Vantage in at least 2 planes in it right away after the wheel.
So I'm getting a basic, and so I can cast Factor Fiction, and then I flip over 5 spells. And I didn't know your hand was all lands, but you passed twice without recommitting to the board. So this felt like the game was essentially over.
How many cards?
For my
Okay,
position.
I'm glad you're doing a count. Okay, it's enough that you won't die while trying to win the game with Uro.
Yeah.
I think this Factor Fiction was also a mistake by me because there is no world where I'm winning this game without Sarah Paragon, and there's no world where I'm playing Sarah Paragon through this Mystic Confluence, so this should have just been a 1/4. I'm not sure if it would have changed what card Scott takes here, but there was no reason to put any card with the Mystic Confluence because that is the only card that outright loses me the game.
I tend to agree. I think I'm taking that Confluence no matter where it is in the piles. As it played out, I also happened to draw another 1-drop creature, so it made this turn really, really easy. Just, play the 2 1-drops, threaten the board pretty significantly, and have Confluence up.
It's also worth noting that not only did I put a second card with the Confluence that I can't beat, but the card I put with it is Deathrite Shaman, which is just another card that's really bad for my Sarah Paragon. So just the worst possible pair of things I could have put together there. But
that's fair, but there's a chance that if Scott's turn had been bring back Uro, like if he spent 4 mana here to bring back Uro and deploy the Deathrite Shaman, then he doesn't have Mystic Confluence up, and
sure,
you can get back a Johnny and kill the Deathrite Shaman. So there was always a chance that, depending on how Scott played this turn, him having the extra 1-drop could make him play incorrectly. But
I considered Uro this turn, but I actually don't have enough blue mana to be able to bring back Uro and leave up Confluence, even though I have nine total mana.
Gotcha.
So I was never going to bring back. The shields were never going to be down on that Confluence.
That's not right, because you have 2 islands. That's Ketria and Zagoth trying them, right?
I have
green. And
I have
blue
4 blue, but I
land.
need double green. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where it. Yeah.
But I am fairly certain at this point that there's no world that I can win this game because, I think I'm just done. Yeah,
I just draw 3 cards off Mystic Confluence, bring back Uro, just deck himself. But
yeah, I mean, the only way I think I was winning the game from that point is if I did manage to have the play Sarah Paragon, play Zerda, bring something back with Zerda, or not Zerda, the bat whose name I'm now forgetting. Zoraline, yeah. And yeah, that's just never happening. Bryan made the point that I did technically have enough mana to play a Sarah Paragon and pay for the Mystic Confluence, but without the Zoraline coming into play as well, I just don't think it's enough.
Right, we saw the wheel. Scott pointed it out first that him not playing a land that turn represented the strength of his hand, and we talked about it in theory that your hand could be a bunch of lands, having gone through so much of your deck, only finding the 6 lands you had in play, and that seems to have been the case, and really what set the tempo for the post-wheel part of that game.
Yeah, so I ended up scoring a 3-0. I think my first of the season. If not the first, it's the first or second.
Think of the season, yeah.
I gotta say, looking at this deck now, even forgetting that it's 44 cards with only 17 lands, I don't know. I think I played pretty well, but I also got very lucky, obviously, to draw appropriate mana in this pile. Whatever. It's Magic. Sometimes you just have to play the cards you have, and even if there's 4 extra of them, you can still pull together some wins, I guess.
Right, but speaking to that point, I think if you cut 4 of these spells, the deck does still look a little bit awkward. This is not the ideal balance setup. It's got...
Oh, certainly. I actually broke out the pen and paper and counted all the pips on my cards and did the math to figure out how many basics I could feasibly support all these colors with. I did some work to get this 3-0. And it felt good, yeah.
Right. Didn't get to see Hull Breacher or Shieldred match up with any of your draw sevens that match, but did that end up pairing either way for your other matches on the day? Do you remember?
Yeah, that's actually how I beat Spurlock in the first round. Not only did I Hull Breacher into Wheel of Fortune, that Wheel of Fortune drew me into Time Spiral, so I played a million more cards that turn. I didn't do that a ton on the day, but it when I did manage to assemble it, it was obviously quite strong and often game ending.
So that will wrap up our coverage for today's draft, an extra match in the books, and congratulations to Scott for taking down a 3-0. With that, he wins the right to choose a card to remove from the card pool and choose a card to replace it. So Scott's change today was to remove Piggy Bank from the Vintage Cube and add in Gleemox. So that should be an added wrinkle in future drafts. Just a reminder that you can always check out the Cube Cobra link in the description to see the updated list of changes that have been made to the Vintage Cube. That will wrap up our coverage for today. We don't have a scoreboard update as this was only our first draft of this day, so keep an eye out for another video coming soon where we'll update with all of the day's results. Thank you, and we hope you come back next time.